Chapter 2, Assessment and the IEP Process. When we talk about assessment, what we're talking about is gathering information so that we can make informed decisions about a child's education. So we can use assessment for screening to determine which children are struggling either in academics or behavior. We can use assessment for referral, referring a child for remedial services or for special education services. We can use assessment to classify children into different disability categories. We can use assessment for instructional planning. We can use assessment for monitoring pupil progress. One of the big questions we have in special education is how we determine eligibility for services under certain disability categories. In the field of learning disabilities, which of course this class is, this is especially problematic because by definition what we're saying is that a child with a learning disability has average or above average IQ but has discrepancies in their achievement. The actual definition, federal definition for learning disability says that it is a disorder in one or more of the basic processes in using language. And so how do you measure that? So here are some thoughts. The method that's being used most of the time now is called response to intervention, and this is what the law now allows, and in many states this is what's required. In the past, what we used instead was a comprehensive evaluation where we compared the child's ability as measured on an IQ to his achievement in one of 8 different areas. So we looked at reading, basic reading skills, reading comprehension, reading fluency, math computation, math reasoning, speaking, listening, and writing. So here's how response to intervention is used. It's a process to prevent academic failure by using evidence-based instruction in general ed. We have levels or tiers of intervention. Mississippi uses a 3-tier model. Tier 1 is high quality instruction in general ed. It's just differentiating instruction. Tier 2 is for students who don't respond adequately to Tier 1. So they get more intense instruction in a smaller group a couple of times a week. And then Tier 3 is for children who do not respond adequately in Tier 2. They get more intense, frequent, individualized interventions. So what we do in RTI is we measure their growth through frequent progress monitoring. And so instead of saying that a learning disability is a discrepancy between ability and achievement, we now define a learning disability as a child not responding to intervention so that he doesn't make progress, that his progress is either flat or is actually even going backwards. So here's the way it works for if we have a 3-tier model of RTI, which we do in Mississippi. The first question that we have in Tier 1, we're instructing all the children in the general ed class, differentiating. And so we ask the question, did he respond to intervention? If the answer is yes, then no disability. If the answer is no, then we send the kid to Tier 2. In Tier 2, we're going to do more intensive instruction, and we're going to ask the question, did he respond to the intervention? If yes, then we're talking no disability. If no, then we go to Tier 3 intervention. In Tier 3, we're going to do more intensive small group instruction or even individualized instruction. Did he respond? Yes. No disability. No, then we can evaluate for special education. Now, comprehensive evaluation is the traditional assessment process. It's what we used for over 35 years, from 1975 until around 2000, when we began to look at response to intervention. The student's achievement is compared to his intellectual ability, what his potential is. It's the method that's used in other disciplines other than special education. So in 2004, the authorization of IDEA said that we had free appropriate public education, that we had to meet the standards of the state education agency, and that we had to use preschool, elementary, or secondary schools in the state involved in providing services in conformity with the IEP. So here's what the IEP process says. In the referral stages, we do pre-referral, which in Mississippi, RTI acts as pre-referral. And then we have the referral and the initial planning. Then during assessment, we do a multidisciplinary evaluation, and we have an IEP meeting. Now, multidisciplinary assessment in Mississippi, we're going to assess the child physical, emotional, social and behavioral, language, and academics. Those are the areas that we're going to assess in Mississippi. If the child is declared eligible, then we have an IEP meeting. And then in the instruction stages, what we're going to do is implement the plan that was written in the IEP meeting and then monitor the progress. So in the referral stages, what we're going to do is we're going to do pre-referral and referral. And then the assessment, we're going to do multidisciplinary evaluation in the IEP meeting. And then in the instruction stages, we're going to write the IEP, and then we will review yearly the child's progress. So, how do each of these participants prepare in advance? Parents are supposed to get adequate notice. So what do you think parents are going to do? Well, they're going to gather the records they have about the child. They're going to gather previous report cards, things the kids have been working on at home, notes that they have, questions that they have. The general ed teacher is going to gather work samples and test results. The special ed teacher is going to work with the general ed teacher to review and make sure that we have a comprehensive set of work samples and test results. The local education agency representative is going to review the written material so they can be prepared to make recommendations. The person who interprets the instructional implications of evaluation will look at the written reports and make some preliminary notes. And then others at the discretion of parents or schools. So this may be counselors, this may be occupational therapists, speech therapists, it could be physical therapists, other people that might have special knowledge about this child. And then the child, if they're old enough. So in the IEP, we're going to have the present level of academic achievement and functional performance. So not just test scores, but we're going to talk about how those test scores are affecting that child's performance in the classroom. So it's one thing to say that I'm in 8th grade and I'm reading on 2nd grade level. It's another thing to say I'm in 8th grade, I'm reading on 2nd grade level. So in social studies, the problem that I have is synthesizing large amounts of material. Measurable annual goals, things that we can actually collect data on. How and when these goals will be measured. Special ed and related services and supplemental aids. What are we going to do to help this child meet these annual goals and have full access to the general ed curriculum? Individual appropriate accommodations and modifications to measure their academic achievement and functional performance. So if I'm in 8th grade, I'm reading on 2nd grade level, then what kinds of modifications and accommodations are you going to make for me in social studies so that I can process that complex information? Projected date for beginning of services, frequency, location, and duration, and then transition assessment beginning not later than the first IEP that is in effect when the child is 16. In Mississippi, that number is 14, by the way. And then other special factors, behavior plans, assistive technology, visual, if the child has to have Braille, all of those would be included. So where are we going to get this assessment information? We're going to look at case histories, observations, rating scales, standardized norm reference tests. Norm reference test is a test that compares the child's performance to that of other children of the same age. Curriculum-based measure, which gives us a list of skills that a child should know from this curriculum. And then progress monitoring in what it is they're being taught. And then all kinds of informal tests over specific skills that the child's being taught. So portfolio assessment, you know that from your college years, where we gather samples and then we tell how those samples meet specific curriculum goals. Informal reading tests, we're going to look at fluency, we're going to look at vocabulary, we're going to look at comprehension. Informal arithmetic tests that look at how the child is comprehending material and how he also is acquiring specific skills. Criterion reference test that compares the child to the standard set for that grade. Teacher-made tests. And then in statewide assessments, what we have is we have the Common Core state standards that everyone is tested on, and so kids with learning disabilities have to take the same tests at the same grade level as everyone else. And so we have to look at what the allowable accommodations are and how we're going to use those accommodations.